Welcome in, welcome back to another edition. I think I'm going to call this part two, officially, of Storytime with Skyy. I got some really good feedback from the last time we did it, although it was like the other month, so has been a bit. Apologies for that. I've been busy with other content, and again, really grateful for folks who have supported that content. If you do join in on streams that we have both here on YouTube as well as on Twitch, links are everywhere, including in the description. So definitely give me a follow. You know that, I like to tell a good story. I like to interact with chat. I like to, tell little bits and pieces about my life. And folks responded well and said that they enjoyed that. So we're going to try and see if it works to kind of do a mini series. If folks really aren't receptive, then we'll kind of chill on it. But I feel like with the recent video that we put out and the response around it, I feel like it'd be a good time to kind of follow up with a story. And also you all get a better sense of my analysis and, why I make content and the videos about Destiny 2. And before this intro gets any longer than it already is, I do want to say a heads up that I am coming into this recording, pre-editing or cutting it, and I'm saying this now. I'm going into this hoping that this can be fairly short, but y'all know me. I love to add context. I love to make sure that folks are very clear on what I'm saying, and sometimes that ends up being me rambling. So I'm going to try not to ramble, so I do have some points written down that I want to hit with this story, but I would just ask, just hang around. Again, we do narrative style storytelling on this channel anyway, so you can always think about just turning on my videos and listening to them like a podcast, just because that's just the natural way that I speak and that I script these videos. So just a quick heads up, but if you're just get to the good part, you can skip through the video, I guess, but definitely encourage you to watch the full video. Jumping right in, this edition of Storytime with Skyy was inspired by someone who recently commented on the Avoid These LFG videos. Now, again, as I've said before, we're a smaller channel. I acknowledge that. I'm only in competition with myself, so I definitely don't compare my numbers to bigger channels. But in my opinion, the video actually went viral. It had about 4K views, which is huge. So big thanks for everyone who's engaged with that video, watched it. People have said that they shared it with friends, so really appreciate that, as well as the conversation that we're having in the comment section. It's been really great. And speaking of comment section, one comment that came up was from Night is Monochrome that says, I love how the raid LFG can be a mixed bag of goodies, which we kind of talked about in the video. 85% of my know what to do / chill runs go normally. 10% it's absolutely terrible and takes 1.5 hours after getting stuck with the bad apples. Last 5% is really great vibes and everyone has a great time, or quick 30-minute runs where everyone really knows what they're doing. Just wish that last 5% occurred more often. And you're wondering what this has to do with the title, because I really feel like I'm going to say something along the lines of how I was being toxic or how I was the problem, because when I read this, it immediately triggered a core memory around a raid experience that I had years ago around Garden of Salvation, and how, in my perspective, I can be honest and transparent and say that I feel like I was toxic. And I want to talk a little bit about that situation. Again, I want to do my best not to go through the whole situation because it is pretty long, but I want to hit the top lines and kind of talk about why I feel like I'm toxic, or I was toxic in that situation, and kind of why, this is applicable to the recent video. So digging into the story itself, the year 2020, the date February 17th. Again, I remember it so vividly that I went through my raid report to pull up the exact date. And but yeah, I remember it was about 11 hours to clear Garden of Salvation. Now, for context, this wasn't my first time attempting Garden of Salvation, but it was one of those runs where I was just so determined, especially just people were you have to have divinity. I was trying to get more into raiding. I was trying to figure out where my place could be in the community, knowing that I'd had experience with the raids before. Again, I think my very first full raid experience, was a Leviathan, I think. And so I already had that little bug, that I already had that little bit of taste in me. And so I was oh yes, this is going to be a great experience. And I want to keep doing this more, but I can't find people. Now, granted, at the time, I was in a very not great situation with the clan I was in. That is a whole different story time situation. especially since I actually ran into one of those clan members a couple weeks ago, and it was not a great experience. But that's, again, a different story for a different time, so just stay tuned. But the whole context being, as I hope you all can get, is that I was really interested in trying out the raid. I was really interested in growing that skill of being a raider. And so with this, it comes, if I can't, raid with my clanmates because they're just not really being accepting and inclusive and kind of being toxic about it, well, the only other choice I have, especially because I was playing on Xbox at the time, Xbox 360, was to do the LFG. So I was doing the LFG system within the Xbox system, which is its own parallel, dimensional universe of experiences. And eventually, just kept getting stuck with like groups who like, it just, the LFG just wouldn't fill up, and you'd be sitting there for like 20, 30 minutes and people wouldn't join. And then, people would leave, and it just kept being the experiences like, I really want to do this. But I just don't have the means in terms of a Sherpa, in terms of like people who are willing to take me through the raid. Where I would identify that I was toxic, and where it kind of connects to what Monochrome had said in their comment, and again, appreciate them for engaging with the content, okay, let me take a step back. The context of like all the groups I wasn't getting in, it's because I was actively avoiding know what to do groups. That's the other point of context I want to add in there. I was actively avoiding them because like I didn't know what to do. Like I had not had a full clear, to my knowledge. I have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure up to that point of that specific run, I had not had a full clear of Garden of Salvation. And for me, I was just like, okay, no one's saying like willing to Sherpa, no one's saying, oh, let's be a chill group. So why don't I just kind of have this imposter role, right? Where I sit there and join a know what to do group, even though I don't know what to do. Again, I was familiar with the general, I had looked up guides on YouTube. Yes, I did all of that. And so I had a general premise. But again, looking up a guide on YouTube about a raid is definitely, it only like 20% translates to the actual experience of raiding. So we get into the raid. I finally, again, I quickly was able to get into a LFG when I just selected, I was like, know what to do. And I joined in with a group who was doing know what to do. And, we got started. The first encounter, I think it was pretty straightforward in terms of like getting through it. I think most first encounters for raids were. The issue began when we started to get to the jumping puzzles and second encounter. Because we were in a group where it was know what to do, and I was a person who, again, in my opinion, it's toxic to join a group that says know what to do and you don't actually know what to do, right? If you're not fully confident and comfortable in a know what to do post, don't join it. That's dishonest. And at the time, again, that's why I'm being transparent. I feel like I was being dishonest. At the time, I think I was in denial about it because, my excuse was like, there just weren't groups, which is also valid. But the kind of nuanced holding two truths at once is like, although it could be true that I couldn't find Sherpas or a good group of folks to help me through Garden of Salvation, it's also not right to be dishonest and join a know what to do group where, like I didn't fully know what to do. I kind of knew what to do, and that was kind of like where I was kind of being sneaky. I knew the general mechanics, but I didn't actually know what to do. The issue arises, and I'm gonna skip a bunch of details, and again, maybe I'll show you the details at a different time. But again, the details would just make this video extremely long. But once we got to encounter 2, and we really had to like start digging into the mechanics, and they were figuring out what portal you were going to go to, and then we had to do jumping puzzle, and I didn't know what jumping puzzle to do, and then also we were trying to do like the divinity puzzle aspects as well, and I just was messing up, especially like the last part of the divinity puzzle where you have to like be in the 6 squares and rotate. Oh my god, I was messing up so badly because for me, I watched several YouTube videos and tutorials, but like doing it in real time, knowing the cadence, knowing the proper call outs, I just wasn't equipped to actually be a helpful member of that fire team. And it resulted in, and again, arguably, I take responsibility, well, not arguably, I take responsibility for not being fully honest and showing up in that way. And, it's definitely a growth moment, and it's a moment even now, years later, to, recognize that. Again, I've shared that with friends, and had those conversations and acknowledged my fault there. But also, I think this is like a great opportunity now with like this avoid these LFG moments to also kind of bring in that lens, because it's as much as we want to say like don't join groups that are outwardly toxic, the way that we show up inside of the raid in our experience and interaction with others, whether we're using a mic or not. And again, I know that's also a hotly debated topic in the comment section, but again, the way you show up in the raid to me is just as important as, vetting the LFG post for people just being toxic on the external. And so for me, even as I look back on that experience, and here's a quick thumbnail or screenshot rather of how many guardians we went through. Again, we're gonna blur out the names and codes because we don't want folks to get doxxed or anything like that. But again, I can't even count how many, like 12, 15, 20 different guardians cycled out of that experience, mainly because of me, mainly because I was in a know what to do group, and I wasn't actually, knowing what to do. I wasn't actually in a place where I was being helpful to the team. And to be in a space where, like, years later, I'm putting out this content, I'm trying to be a positive example in the community. I want to critique Bungie where they fall short in a constructive way, but I also want to critique the community. I also want to show up in the way that, like, I can be, like, honest about who I am, but also I feel like the honesty can't stop at, like, just like who I am currently. It also has to be honest about, like, who I've been in the past. And even though this isn't like, saying slurs or, like, being like ultra toxic, to me, the dishonesty of joining a group of people who wanted to get an activity done and preferably a short amount of time, ending up with me as a group. And again, in some ways, part of saying right now, why didn't you get kicked from the group? I actually don't know. I actually, maybe it was fate, maybe it was destiny, the ethereal destiny of life that I ended up in the space to tell this story today. But like I wasn't kicked from the group. People ended up just leaving, and we cycled through again all these different guardians, and we ended up being there for almost 11 hours just to not complete the raid. All the stress, all the very not nice things that were said to me because I was messing up so badly. I definitely did not have damage that was good at all. Like, just to go through that whole experience and see how I just wasn't equipped to show up in that way. Again, I can't make excuses for that. That is something I have to take ownership for that bit of dishonesty of showing up and I didn't know what to do space when I didn't actually know what to do, or I didn't fully know what to do. But also for me, I think it highlights how important it is to always be creating spaces where folks feel safe or beyond just feeling safe, because I feel like that's like a baseline, that's a given, but also like folks have opportunities to join spaces where, like, if they're really that desperate as I was at that time to, like, get into a raid, have that experience to grow those skills. Because I really was at that moment where I was like, I've done a couple raids total before, but like I really wanted to learn this raid, Garden of Salvation. It looked really cool. And also Divinity, and to this day, Divinity is such a key exotic weapon. All the different reasons why anyone would want to join, but I was so desperate and could not find a LFG that was willing to, like, actually, like, take me, a noob at the time, through the activity, and being in a space where ultimately it's still my responsibility. It's still, my duty to show up in an honest way and figure out, maybe there's other ways that I just wasn't aware of at the time to engage in a space where, like, oh, maybe I could have done better. Again, I wasn't really, I knew of what Twitch was, but I really wasn't in the Twitch culture at that time. But, maybe I could have done more research about, like, Twitch Sherpas, because Sherpas have been around, Sherpas and server streamers have been around, like, for a very long time. Like, me doing those extra steps, yes, I definitely think should have happened on my end. And again, I want to be very clear about taking accountability about that in the ways that I show up. But also, it makes me think a lot about, and again, going back to Monochrome's statement about, like the small percentage of those know what to do chill groups that actually go well. I've experienced that, and it's a really great feeling to be like, hey, I'm just trying to knock out Deepstone Crypt. You get a really good group and everyone knocks it out. Minimal comms, everyone's efficient. We're one phasing things. We're in and out in 20 minutes, right? And also I've been in spaces where you're like doing the same activity, Deepstone Crypt, which again, I'm making that example just because it's fairly easy. people say they know what to do, and you're there for 90 minutes, right? And so those experiences for me are important, that folks have opportunities to join spaces where people are being honest about their skill level. But also, I think it's even more important for there to be multiple types of spaces that people can join, so that regardless of what your skill level is. And again, maybe this comes with the new LFG system that Bungie is introducing in season 22, which is just around the corner. Maybe this is something that we can vet for a little bit more clearly. Maybe there's some type of integration with like rate report in a non-toxic way, but like a way that we can kind of see that, like, oh, this person has 50 clears. They more than likely know multiple roles in the raid. They probably know it very well. This is probably someone I want to LFG with. And if that's your style, absolutely, that we want to have pathways for folks to get easy clears, get through activities. Because again, not just raids, but dungeons, Grandmaster Nightfalls, all the in-game materials, right? We want to be able to, as well as for PvP, right? Trials of Osiris, competitive, all that good stuff. But also creating pathways for less experienced people, or people who have done the raid or dungeon 5 times. And so they kind of know it, but they don't really know it. And things like that. So for me, I fully acknowledge my toxicity. I do want to be clear today. I don't know where these people are in the world, if they're still playing Destiny, if they, will ever find this channel. I wouldn't even know how to track these people down because it was on Xbox. And I'm on PC now, like I wouldn't know all the parameters of that, but from the bottom of my heart, I would deeply and sincerely apologize for that bit of dishonesty, showing up into a know what to do group that I didn't know what to do, and taking valuable time and experience away from people who were coming to what they thought was going to be a positive, potentially very quick experience, and not an almost 11-hour endeavor just to still not get the clear. And so for me, I fully own that. That's something I just have to live with, and that's a burden I have to hold. And again, I am sincerely apologizing to those people wherever they are in the world and the universe, whether they still play Destiny 2 or not. But also for me, I think it's a great learning experience to, for not only the content that we produce on this channel, but for the ways I want to engage with other community members. So when I am sitting here responding to your comments in this section, I'm not here hyperbole, like I'm not just here just like pontificating, and into like these random ethers of deep space, right? I'm actually speaking on these things from experience, whether I'm speaking about engaging and interacting with toxic people, whether I'm talking about, in this scenario where, I was at fault and could have shown up in a better way as a community member, or if we're just talking about things that we know from experience that we want to see from Bungie to improve on. And to know that, one, people are capable of growth and getting better and becoming better. But two, we need to continually, in my opinion, be fighting for spaces for everyone to be able to show up. Whether you are extremely 1% of the 1% of the 1% top tier player, or if you're just someone who just picked up the game 48 hours ago, what can Bungie do and what can the community do to show up and provide spaces for those people? For me, is always going to be a question. I don't think we're ever going to get there to a quote unquote finish line. I don't think it's ever going to be a problem that gets solved, but I do absolutely believe that we can make it better for a lot of people. And I feel like part of that is what I'm trying to do today, and just take ownership for where I've fallen short, but then also committing with my words and through my actions to get better each and every day. All right, so this has already gone longer than I really wanted it to. And again, this is like the shortened version without the ultra details from everything that happened during that experience. But yeah, I'd love to know in the comment section what you all think. Have you experienced something similar to what I described today? And then also, I'd love to know, truly, I'm always, interested in what the community thinks about, like, how could we avoid these type of situations in the future? Again, in a non-toxic, you suck, so stay over there type way. Again, I don't think we need to further silo the community, but I am curious about what the community members think, that being you all, about ways that we can find those ways. Again, I want top tier players to have good experience. I also want low tier newbies, you know, returning players who don't know the meta and haven't played in a year. I want those people to have a good experience as well. And I think it's possible. And I think part of it, I think like 60 to 70% definitely should be Bungie's, you know, taking the effort to create some of these pathways. But I also think there is that 30 to 40% where there are avenues that us as community members can create, either, you know, by, you know, people joining my Discord and we can find like really, you know, good groups of folks to be a part of LFGs, or like people are going to Twitch and looking up, you know, Sherpas who are really good at Sherpaing and can help people through activities, all those different things to be able to make a more positive experience for everyone. So would love to know, those like 13 different questions at once, but would love to know your thoughts in general in the comment section. I'll definitely be responding back as I have time. Again, you know, we try and put out several videos per week. We're also gearing out for the August showcase. There's a lot of content coming out, but I do want to make sure that we're having some good conversation around this because I think it's timely. And I think especially with the recent video that I just put out, avoid these LFGs, and really appreciate folks for making that going my version of viral. You know, I really want the community genuinely to be in a better place. And again, I don't have to volunteer this information. I could have kept this to myself with me and these people who, you know, who are in the LFG experience and who I probably would never see again. You know, I could have kept this to myself, but I found it more important to be transparent because that's the kind of content creator I want to be. But then also I find it really important to like learn from these mistakes. And ultimately, even though it wasn't, just to be honest, it wasn't like an ultra super toxic. I wasn't throwing slurs at people. I wasn't talking down to people. I just didn't know what to do. And I was like messing up and wasting people's times. That's still, again, we talk about this all the time, especially on live stream. Your time is the most precious thing that you can give to anyone. And again, I'm deeply sorry that I even, you know, misuse people's time in that regard. But again, love to know what folks think. There's going to be other iterations. It's not always going to be in this format, story time with Skyy. But again, this is a little insight into my life and how I'm always looking to get better and be better, and hopefully can be on that journey alongside all of you. As always, looking forward to seeing y'all Starside, and we'll talk to y'all next time. Peace.